Hey everybody, it's SVG. We're here on Friday, August 21st, and what I wanted to start doing was on Fridays to come through with my AI weekly roundup, things that I've been reading about AI and marketing that I wanted to share with you. I know there's a lot of noise out there in terms of what is going on in the AI universe as it pertains to marketing and AI in general. So I wanted to at least share some of the tabs that I have open in terms of what I'm reading and what I'm looking at and the content that I am consuming. Just a quick heads up before we dive into it. The views and opinions I'm about to share are entirely my own. They don't represent the official stance or views of the University of Louisville, but all that being said, go Cards, right? So if you have more or if you have an article, please send it to me. I would love to read it. The first one that is on my docket came from this month's, this quarter's edition of HBR. And I read through this article called AI is Revolutionizing Strategic Decision Making. I thought it was pretty good. It takes it from the perspective of what is actually going on in the strategist role and how we need to adapt and become a new type of strategist in the marketing space that they are calling a hybrid strategist, right? You have the ability to understand and frame the problem, but then you also know how to build the AI workflows and systems to help solve it along the way, moving much more from a strategist to an architect, right? Using more imagination than analysis and using AI to help unlock a lot of things before you get to the room. It really looked at three different bottlenecks that come into strategic planning. The first is the ability to do research. So AI can do research a lot better than we can. And oftentimes strategy sessions are limited by the humans in the room and the research that they brought with them. So it lets you take a wider net, cast a wider net in what's going on, and then come through with different options. It also helps to pressure test options, right? So there can be groupthink that happen in these um, different brainstorms and strategy sessions that, often the senior person is the one with the loudest voice. So you default to what they say and want to do. But with AI, you can pressure test and simulate debate for a lot of different things. You can have one AI agent be the critic. You can have the other AI agent be the creator, and then they go back and forth ad nauseum until they find the best option for you. And then the other thing it can do is it can really help to get you a more dynamic landscape in terms of what's out there, right? Again, anytime any market research you do becomes out of date almost instantly as the markets shift, as consumers evolve, but AI can let you tap into that a little more dynamically, a little bit more as needed as you head directly into your strategy session. So you can get up to the hour type of information rather than up to the quarter. So a good read if you are heading into a strategy session looking at my friends in the agency world going into Q4 planning. This might be a good one to keep on your desk. Another one, piece of content that I'm reading, or I guess listening to in this case, is the interview with Yuval Noah Harari on The Economist. Very interesting conversation with the author of books like Sapiens and Nexus and things like that, who takes a kind of wide perspective on what's going on in the history of the world. And he's got a good understanding of how AI is kind of baked into that. Some of the takeaways I have from this are there's there's an interesting thing happening with trust and how humans trust other humans and how humans trust algorithms and the shift and the evolution of trust along the way. So that's something to keep in mind and pay attention to. And then the other, I think, overarching meta theme of this conversation is the inevitability conversation, right? Is AI inevitable? Are there things that we can do now? Are we still in control? What does that look like? How do we think about that here and now so that way we are reaping what we sow 10 years in the future rather than just, well, I don't know, AI is doing its thing, so we'll just let it go, right? So taking a much more active stance here and now in terms of maintaining control on what you're doing. The next article, hopefully these are sharing. Let's see. The next article that I've got is again from The Economist, and this is an interesting one talking about AI and learning with children, particularly in China. And I'm going to skip ahead just a little further down in the article for this graph, which I thought was particularly interesting. And essentially, what happened is they did a study on the effects of AI in children age 12 to 18 in China. And it looked at them over a 2 year span, right? And looked at how they did on homework, right? So their homework score after using AI went up. Their homework time went down. So they were able to complete better homework faster. But then the interesting thing happened that their exams actually went down, right? They kind of flattened into this less bell curve, right? It's kind of bringing the tail end of the bell curve out through the back. And I think that's really interesting. So I'm reading this in terms of AI is really good for quick, really good for get me an answer now, really difficult for actual retention, actual learning, actual application. So this again is a study of 26,000 pupils, right? So it's got some significance there to it, but it's a sign, perhaps a signal out there that's saying, hey, maybe we should use AI in a different way. If you don't have it for homework, maybe you get better exams. Have it on exam. Like finding ways to strategically use it as an educator is something that I'm looking at. The next article is called Frontier Race Upset. So from our friends at Morning Brew, Tech Brew, AI Brew, whatever it ends up being. But essentially, the headline here is that for the first time, Anthropic has actually outgained OpenAI in revenue. So, bit of a shakeup in terms of who is making money and how this is going. Again, more of just an interesting note here in time that you should be aware of. Not a whole lot of depth to the article, but just something that is interesting to look at in terms of what's going on in the AI leaderboard. All of them are, both of them are rapidly approaching an IPO. So I think that's the thing to note in all of this is that they're kind of jockeying for position along the way. But who's to say what's going to happen once the IPOs go live to be determined. And then the last article I've got harkens back to my days in shopper marketing. I just can't quit looking at retail stats and reports and data. But Local IQ just came out with a holiday marketing survey with 15 really interesting nuggets along the way. So if you are a planner or somebody in the shopper marketing, retail marketing space, this might be a good one for you to check out. I'm going to skip down the article. So this is the same article, but it's just a little bit further down in the page for the sake of time. This one was interesting in terms of like where are people going when they're seeking inspiration, right? In-store browsing is actually the number one place to go for inspiration, which I thought was really interesting. And then you've got online retailers asking people, right? So having people know what they want in terms of gifting, social media, TV commercials, knowing what they want, gift guides, etc., all the way down the way to blogs and newspapers, right? But it gives you an idea of where people are looking for inspiration. I wanted to go to number 10, I think was the one. Yeah, this idea is for gift buyers. So if you have a gifting product, I think this is also kind of interesting to look at. Very emotional decision, right? In terms of buying a gift for people. And the idea is, do you find it hard, right? So about half of the people find it difficult to find gifts for friends and family. And really, what is hard about it, right? So they'd ask a great question of like, is it hard? And then why, right? Which is another amazing survey technique that they're using to actually get at the insight of what's going on here. So, what do you find difficult about making holiday purchases for friends and family? Unsure what gifts friends and family would enjoy is the number one reason, 58%. Budget, and then getting gifts for friends and family, and then unsure where to make the holiday purchases. So think about this if you are a brand, if you are a company that sells gifts, you may want to think about ways to mitigate some of these factors, right? Do you have what's your return policy? Maybe you should be talking about that more. What are some alternates, right? Or what are some bundles or what are some ideas that you can make a persona and say, hey, this is for the Mahjong mom, and here's everything you need for her, or the runner dad, like here's your entire setup that you need to get something that dad's going to love. It's just kind of a nice way for this report to specifically tie into those things. So again, as you're cooking up ideas for Q4 in the retail space, be sure to look at if you're giving gifts, what's stopping people from giving them. There's, I don't know, 13 other wonderful data points from this. And the nice thing is it's not just data, right? It's the backup of what's going on with the data world. So, all right, those are the tabs that I have open this week. And if you have anything that you're reading, please send it to me. I'd love to check it out. And without further ado, thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all next week.